I thank you so much, Commissioner, for being with us today. I am in the throes of childcare in that stage of my life and constantly making decisions in consideration for what it should be for my 8-month-old and my 5-year-old. And I am curious if you could speak a little bit about how these incubator programs would be operationally different from a traditional center.
Sure, I appreciate that. I think having an 8-month-old, one thing you'll appreciate is that much of the infant toddler care in the state is done by family child care homes. A lot of parents choose that in those early years. How this is different is right now, if you bring your child to a program that is licensed by OEC as a family child care home, it is always also the residence of the person running the program. It's small, 6 up to 9 children with 2 staff. So the way this is different, and that's where the regulatory changes come in, is that this can be in another setting following the family child care regulations with some slight tweaks that we're working on. I have my licensing director here if you want to get into the specifics. But like in New Britain, I've been to visit a couple times. They have 4 classrooms, what were formerly classrooms, so they're not a home. They'll have to meet the square footage requirements. They'll have to meet the water, the lead safety, the health and safety requirements of family child care homes. But nobody lives at the residence. So that's really the biggest difference.
But why wouldn't these centers be following the traditional center model as opposed to home? Like, what makes this beneficial that they follow the home model versus what the regulations that are followed by daycare centers?
When you get into centers, you get many more strict rules about, I can ask Liz to come up and talk about the difference, but I know, for example, the group size changes, I think requirements for things like sprinklers, things that really add on to the costs. Liz, I don't know if you want to, can you detail more of the differences?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I'm Liz Porietti. I'm the director of the licensing division. We too struggled with this idea when it was first presented to us. We were tasked with issuing a family child care home license to an individual in what looks like a commercial space. And the law as written allowed us to waive certain requirements for a family child care home license as well as to add additional requirements. And so when considering those, that now we're looking in a commercial building, we now wanted to look at, did it require some of those things that a traditional child care center would be required to fulfill as part of an application? So a comprehensive lead inspection, approval by local officials, by fire marshal, the building zoning departments. And so we did add certain requirements to these applications in this incubator model.
I appreciate that. I think something that I'd like to know, so I have an 8-month-old in a home model, and it feels very similar to trusting a family member to watch your child, where you don't expect the same level of scrutiny and oversight that you would expect for like a traditional center. And just as a mom, more than as a legislator, I think it's helpful to sort of understand comparatively what the difference is between, I understand regulation relief is really important to get more folks onboarded doing this program and this work, but I just want to make sure that we don't get to a place where there is some laxening of what we see as the quality or regulation around childcare, because sometimes that makes me nervous to think about less regulation, though I know it's super important that we get more folks onboarded, but I don't think we want to be in a situation where we're getting more folks and centers onboarded. We have enough spots, but some of the spots are worse quality or lower caliber of care. And so I just was hoping that I could sort of get an understanding of what kinds of regulations, hopefully nothing safety-wise, what kinds of regulations were lessened when we went from the center model to the home model.
Sure. There aren't very many, actually, that we're not looking at in terms of issuing these licenses. If one of the requirements, if you're to have a license in your home, is to have all the members of your household who are 18 years of age and older background checked, and to provide a current medical statement. There are obviously no household members living in this residence, so that's a no-brainer to waive that. I think we also waived smoke detectors because the fire marshal would be giving an overall approval of the building, so there may be like a central smoke system rather than an individual one needed. But otherwise, I think the requirements were made more stringent for a family provider being licensed in this type of facility.
And one other piece I'd like to add, because I really appreciate your questions, and our team has been out to visit the place in New Britain almost as a model to say, what do we need to adapt? I think one of the benefits is being a family child care provider can be really isolating. You're on your own, you're trying to resolve problems. This comes with a whole technical assistance training up front, and then you're there with your 3 other peers, for example, in New Britain, who are going to be working side by side. So, you have someone right there to bounce issues you might be having off of to try to provide support. So we see it as a supportive environment as well, like a educationally supportive. And these women are learning to run a small business, so their business supports, so that when they go off and start their own family child care, maybe buy a home and run it there or rent, that they will have this experience and have some background running a program before they just open one up in their home.
And I'll just share, as a mom, my son was on, who's now 8 months old, was on 5 family child care home wait lists to get into the spot that he is on right now. We could find a spot in any center, but my son was born preterm with breathing issues, and I wanted to limit the number of kids and potentially illnesses he was exposed to. And so the home model felt like a really good way to decrease his exposure risk. That being said, it was really hard, and even the position he's in right now is a part-time position because there is such an incredible limit to the amounts of spaces that are on. And I call the daycare centers in my town, the family homes, probably once a month, confirming what the wait list is and what my son's position is on the spot, so he doesn't lose his spot on a wait list. And I am constantly checking in to see where we stand on that availability. And so I think, people talk about shortages and childcare options all the time. We talk about the economic impact of these shortages, but they can be incredibly debilitating for a 2-parent working household. And when you get spots, you want to get your foot in the door, and so you accommodate a ton of flexibility that like while you're waiting to get to this place up where you can sort of gear up to speed. And so I think it's great that we can try and get more spots on, especially without lessening any of the safety standards that parents really rely on OEC to make sure that these centers are meeting minimum safety requirements. They rely on you as a regulatory agency in this place to know that they can trust the licensed centers to be a safe place to send their kids to. And so I'm grateful. I'm looking forward to seeing what this looks like, and I'd love to tour as well. So thank you very much.
We can arrange that, Representative, if you reach out to our office. And to your point about economic development, the lack of infant toddler care costs Connecticut $1.5 billion a year in economic activity because of the folks who can't get in the workforce because of lost productivity. And that's from the National Chamber of Commerce. So you are a living example of this shortage, and we really believe more family child care can help expand infant toddler care.